Hi everyone and welcome back to what I promise will be the final Chatorial for our nameplate page in Jewellery Box by Hanna Karlzon. I've said it, I think I've said it probably 3 times over the series of these videos, but we will be getting finished up today. We don't have a huge amount left to do, which is great. So let's just get going and we can see if we can get finished. I want to thank you all for your lovely comments after the last video. Most of you were quite impressed with the black background, and I did say it would make things pop out, you know, I did say that. It's something that I really like doing, and I think because I have a fixation with black paper anyway, it's something that really appeals to me. So what we're going to do today is we're going to finish off these little parts inside our flowers and our little stars, and then we're going to work in this section in the middle and just add a few finishing touches. I have to apologise for my injured finger being on display today. It has healed up quite considerably, but it's still pretty ugly, so if you're squeamish, I'm really sorry. But I can't have a bandage or a dressing on it anymore because it's very restrictive because I'm left-handed. That aside, now we can move on. What I have here is I'm still sticking with Prismacolor pencils, and you can see I'm waving about these 2 yellow type pencils. So the first one that we have is Deco Yellow, which is PC1011. And I also have one of my favourite colours, which is Spanish Orange, and that is PC1003. So what we're going to do is the same thing that we always do, is we're going to get a base colour down, and I'm going to start over on the right hand side like I normally do. I'll get zoomed in a little bit so you guys can see a bit closer up on what we're doing. Maybe not too close. And what I want to do here is just start with these middle parts of the flowers and just sticking a layer of that down across all these parts. I'm not taking too much time over this. It is quite a small area, and we want it just to set it off nicely rather than it being a focal point of the picture. So going in with my Spanish Orange now, I'm kind of going to go on the same principle as I did with the petals. So we want the sort of parts that are tucked in, we want them to be darker because they're kind of nestled in at the base of the flower. So you can use quite a heavy pressure here actually. You're not going to do too much damage. Again, when you're working in a smaller area, sometimes it's better to, you know, avoid that kind of light layer situation. So I'm just popping a little squidge in at the base, and the ones that are at the back, I'm putting that Spanish Orange a bit higher up than the ones that are sort of at the forefront, again because our light source is coming from down here somewhere. So all we want to do once we've done that, I'm just going to grab my little brush because I've got some crumbs here. Nothing worse than colouring crumbs. The brush that I'm using, if any of you haven't seen this before, it actually came in a roll of makeup brushes, and when I felt the bristles, they are so soft, and I thought, oh, that I'm going to have to use that for my arting. Not that I wear a lot of makeup anyway, so I'm not really going to miss it. But having a little brush like this is really handy, especially if you're working with Prismacolors. So going back to the Deco Yellow then, we'll just smooth out that edge between the Spanish Orange and the Deco Yellow that we had put down. We're just going to sort of blend those together a little bit. Again, you don't need to be too careful, it's a very small area. But you can see that stands out quite nicely against the petals, and also as well it just adds a little bit of interest to the rest of the picture because we have stuck quite You can tell that I'm tired today, I can't form words properly. Because we've stuck quite rigidly to the rest of the colour scheme. This just adds something in, a little bit of extra pizzazz. So I'm just going to carry on, and I'm going to do the rest of these exactly the same, so I don't need to do much explaining here. So we'll just get going with these. Get that sorted out. Yeah, I haven't had a tremendous amount of sleep, and I have to say my brain isn't really functioning to its full capacity today. I still have quite a lot of stuff to do. It is kind of like late afternoon now, and I have a ton of housework to do, and I have to make some dinner and a few other bits, and do you know, that way I just don't really have any enthusiasm or motivation for it at all. And one of my favourite ways to procrastinate is to colour, so I thought that this would be a much better idea than doing housework. The housework will still be there when I'm finished, but I'm just having one of those days today where I cannot look forward enough to going to bed tonight. I'm really excited about going to bed. Oh, such an exciting life. I really do, you've no idea. But it's just been I feel as if it's about Thursday or Friday and it's Tuesday. So, you know, I feel as if I've run into the week way further than I actually have already. So it's not a good sign when it's only Tuesday. But I'm sure we'll get there. We'll get there eventually. It will be fine. I'm sure you can hear Pip crunching in the background as well. She's got one of her Nyla bones and she's doing her usual. She's rolling about the floor with it, but she's quite happy. She always is happy. She's a happy little dog. She's usually got a waggy tail. And that's what we want, happy dogs. So we'll move on over to this other side now. Now when I was doing this one here, I kind of just thought about the fact that this petal's sort of coming up in front of it. So again, it's kind of shielding that centre part from the light source. Once again, entirely up to you whether you want to take things like that into consideration when you're doing these types of pictures. Sometimes it's nice just to have a, you know, sort of hint at the idea rather than going all out. I say, especially when you're working in fiddly little areas like this. Now with this part, I'm just following the line of that petal that's in front there. Just popping a little bit of this down, medium pressure. Prismacolor pencils are great for this. I highly recommend it for things like this, you know, really easy blending, no hassle. Very pleasant, very straightforward, very relaxing. It did make me chuckle when I was talking about the Crayolas, and I was thinking about it the other day after I'd talked about it, and I find it really funny now that I absolutely hated these pencils when I first got them, and I'm really glad I persevered with them. I think you do have to do that sometimes with art supplies. I don't know what it is, but I always tend to find that my gut instinct's usually right, but I just felt with these pencils, they were so expensive. My first set was a set, I think it was a set of 48. I'm sure it was a set of 48, and they are really expensive to buy in the UK. And I thought, you know, surely there must be more to this than, you know, than I'm finding here, because they are, you know, they are really expensive pencils. And I think that was maybe what made me persevere a little bit more, and, you know, I was a little bit more stubborn about trying them out. And yeah, I'm really glad I did. They're still not my favourite pencils. I still prefer my Polychromos over these, but it's nice because it's quite, when you see the two sets of pencils side by side, they have quite different palettes and you get different types of colours in each one, so it's quite nice to have that variation as well. Right, the stars in the middle, I'm going to use these same colours as well, and I'm just doing exactly as I did before. So I'm going to pop down a little bit of that deco yellow in these little stars here. These are cute, I like them. I quite like stars anyway, I've got a thing about stars. And with the orange, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of highlight some areas, so give it a sort of 3D effect. And all I'm doing is colouring in half of each of the points of the stars, almost as if you're going to give it a 3D effect, just like this. And then what I can do is I can go back in with this deco yellow and just put an extra layer on the other bits that are there. Just pop a little bit in here. Again, it's you're working in quite a small area, so don't deliberate over it for too long. There's really no need. You're just looking to get that sort of general idea of what's going on. I'm pressing quite hard when I'm doing this. There we go. That's nice. So we're moving down the picture a little bit now, and we've got these ones in the middle to do. Again, same thing, just a quick layer of the deco yellow. Get that down there. And pop all this in here. Might as well do this one while I'm here as well. There we go. It's really nice to finally see this picture coming together and, you know, to be coming towards the end. Well, I said in the video on Sunday, it's been kind of festering, it's been sitting sort of taunting me on the shelf. I have a shelf in one of the bookcases in the cave, and the books that are on the shelf sit really far, you know, they're set really far in, so there's a bit of a ledge at the front, and that's where I keep all my sort of works in progress so that they're easily to hand and I can just pick them up whenever. and this book has been goading me for weeks sitting on that shelf. And it's just really nice to get to that point now where it's coming together nicely, especially now that the background's done, you know, the black background's done, that because that makes all the difference. And we can get on and finally see it completed. And this middle one now. So this has got a lot of fiddly bits in it, this one, goodness me. I'll just pop these in. Again, I'm not being too fussy, make it quite random. You know, it's not going to be completely uniform, it's a flower. You want it to have that bit more sort of, you know, of an organic feel to it. And there's no need to worry. Just enjoy the process of putting the pencil on the paper. Nice and relaxed, that's what we like. And these ones are kind of fiddly in here as well, good grief. Tiny, tiny. So I finally got my car back as well, which was nice. Picked that up yesterday afternoon. And it's back in one piece, which is fabulous. I nearly choked when I saw the bill for it, right enough, but I've not really had any problems with the car in the time that I've had it. So I can't really complain. We've not had to do anything to it, so. Again, this star, just the same as we did up the top there, not doing anything different here. It is nice to have the car back, although I don't rely on my car, as I said, because I work from home. It's not really a big deal for me, and it's more inconvenient if I need to, you know, nip to the town or whatever, and you know, stuff like that. But it's not like a, you know, a life or death situation. Okay, we'll move down to this bottom part now. We've got 3 little stars here. So, yeah, I've got the car back now anyway. It's another thing ticked off the list. The great long list of adulting. Too many things to do. I had to rescue some lost lambs yesterday as well. I had all the dogs out for a walk yesterday. Jock was finished for the day. So I had the 3 of them, and I had walked out round the farm, and there, you know, we have walks on the farm, you know, paths and trails and things. So we've gone up round there. It was a pretty miserable day yesterday, and I could hear these 2 tiny little lambs, and they were screeching their heads off, and I thought it sounded as if they were injured, or either that or just really, really hungry. Before I continue this story, what I'm doing here is I'm just leaving a tiny little bit of white at the top of this circular part, and I'm just laying down that deco yellow, and then I'm just going to run the orange around the bottom rim here. So I went to investigate the source of this noise, and honestly, see for the size of them and their tiny little bodies, they can make some amount of noise, those little lambs. So anyway, I found these 2 lambs, and they were a set of twins. I'm pretty sure they were siblings, and they're just wandering about on their own at the opposite end of the field to where all the other mums and babies were, and I thought, oh, you 2 have got separated from your mum, bless her. And so I tried to lift them, managed to catch one, and the other one started to run away, and then panicked and realised that its sibling wasn't with it and started running towards me, so I just picked them up. So I ended up walking back to the farm with the 3 dogs and a lamb under each arm. So it turns out that their mother had rejected them. I'm just putting a tiny dot of this Spanish orange in these little sort of intricate bits here, and it's just to contrast with the blue. You can see they're popping out a little bit better as opposed to the white areas. So yeah, it turns out their mother had rejected them, so I left Mr. Jem and the young gentleman that works with us, our shepherd, to go and see if they could source the mother and perhaps get them, you know, reunited and sort of bonded together again. So I will find out tonight when Mr. Jem comes home. I'll find out what happened with them, but I haven't heard them screeching since then. But oh, that's just quite stressful when you hear them. Alrighty, let's have a little look at this now. What do we think to that? Oh, that's looking pretty. Now the next thing I want to do is, obviously I am going to write my name in here, so what I want to do is just map out that area first before I put in any more coloured pencil, and it's just to make sure I've got enough space. Now I am very lucky in that my name only has 3 letters in it, so I don't need a huge amount of space, which is great. I'm very lucky that way. It's more than can be said for my surname. For those of you that don't know, I have an Italian surname and no one can pronounce it or spell it, and yeah, that's fine. I'm used to it. Okay, so I've just given myself some guidelines top and bottom, and I'm instantly regretting that because that line is far too close to the edge of my petals. So I am just going to erase that and do another one. I still want to make my name a reasonable size, but I don't want it infringing on my lovely petals that we've spent ages colouring in. So I'm just using a bog standard graphite pencil here. It's nothing fancy. Got stuff everywhere. What have I done with my pencil now? Lost my pencil, there it's there. Yeah, so nothing fancy, and I'm just putting down a really light guideline so that when I put my letters in for my name, I know my limitations and I don't end up with wonky letters. That would be nice. So now that I've done that and I'm aware of where that's going to be, what I want to do is go back to this idea of the light source being in the middle. So I'm actually going to leave that white. But what I want to do is I want to graduate out to black just round the outside of this area. So the pencils that I'm going to use for that is I have black, normal black. I have 50% cool grey. And I have 10% cool grey, and we're just going to work very gradually, very gently on each of these sections and build it up. And I think one of these types of things, I think I'll do a little bit and show you, and then maybe speed the rest up so that we're not here for too long. So the first thing that I like to do is using the black pencil is to put in a really heavy layer and quite a thick line of the black, and I'm pressing really hard because that is what we want to graduate out from to the lighter colours. So now that I've got the darkest bit as dark as I can get it, I'm just going to start feathering this out with little circular motions, and I'm just lightening up the pressure ever so slightly, and I'm going to do that and get lighter and lighter as I come out towards this centre area. Just like this. I'm going to do this part in here as well. Now it's up to you to decide where you want this dark area, you know, how far you want it to come out. That is completely up to you. And I have in the past seen myself doing it most of the way around and thinking I could bring that out further. So the good thing about this is you can do it in stages, and if you're feeling that you need to be a bit braver, then you can easily extend it out just that little bit further. So we're going to go with something like that sort of effect. Just want to bring this round the curve a wee bit more. Now what I want to do is I don't want to bring it round past the peacock's bodies because I feel like they're in front of this sort of filigree type area. So I'm going to have nothing there for now, and I'm going to start going along the bottom here. So we've got some quite tight areas in here. And really the idea behind this is just trying to keep it even all the way along. So you want, however thick and dark your black part is here, you want it to be relatively uniform because this part is almost straight. And it is easy to build it up. There's no hassle. If you take your time and go cautiously, you won't have any problems doing this whatsoever. But you've just got to be careful and try not to be too heavy-handed. So I'm putting that thick black line in again first. I'm trying to avoid my little white circles here because I kind of want to keep that white. I don't really know what they're supposed to be, but... So there we go. I'm trying to bring that up to roughly the same level as this part next door to it. And the same in here. So it's only going to be really dark right in at the crease of those petals. This little fleck you can see here is actually black paint, it's not pencil. I must have had a twitchy moment when I was doing the background. So I'll pop that in there and then just let that up pressure wise as we head up towards the middle part, and then we can just carry on right across here. Now we are going to be adding the grey to this as well, but so we're just working with the black to begin with just to get us started. It's almost like an anchor point or a reference point so that you can work with your other colours. A little bit in there. Generally when you're doing this as well, it's beneficial to not have a really sharp point on your pencil because you want it to be quite soft. You know, you don't want to see any harsh pencil strokes. So it's pretty good if you actually don't have a sharp pencil for a change. Okay, I'm quite happy with that for now. Excuse me. So we'll come up here and I can do this little part round here. Having just said that, I do think I'm actually going to have to sharpen this black pencil because it's getting a little bit too round now. I'll be okay for a little while. I see I've got a reference point here because I've got this little white circle. When I look over here, I can see how far I took the black out on this side. So I know that I can go roughly to there, and it doesn't have to be exact. It's not imperative. And then I can just work on fading that out a little bit more. Then we have this edge here. Get that really heavy line down first and then into my little circular motions. And then just start to let up that pressure as I go outward. Okay. Now moving around this top part, I'm just going to tilt this slightly to make it a bit easier on my hand. I'm going to put the black in here and do exactly the same thing. And what I want to do now is I want to sort of join this grey up, bring it together and just pull that out a little bit more. So this is us starting to sort of join everything together now, like this. And then I'm going to do the same in this part here. Just going to get the dark line down first. There's something very satisfying about drawing a dirty, great big black line in a colouring page that you've spent, you know, time on, and you've been very delicate with your blending and all the rest of it. There's just something really satisfying about that, and I don't know, maybe that's the deviant in me, but I really like it. Even though it's you know, it's only on a tiny part of your drawing. Now I'm being very light-handed here, and all I'm really doing is joining that up to the section that's round the other side. I'm barely touching the paper there. And I want this to be dark in here, but I want it to lighten up as it's coming to the edge of this point, because that is right in next to our lettering, so we don't want to be, you know, we don't want to have too much dark colour around that particular spot. So then we can mirror image it on this side. And we can just join that up ever so gently. Bring this down a little bit, I think, in there. And then we can go back to our dark line here. There we go. And it's nice when you get to this second side, so I say, because you've got the other side to refer back to. It's really handy. So we've just got this little section in here. That's going to be the last dark part, and we're going to pull this out just as we've done, and then we can join up these sections again. Just really like barely tickle the paper, hardly let the point touch the paper. Because what we're going to do with this is we're going to actually build it up with the greys rather than the black. Right, so that's given us a starting point. And it looks okay already. It is a bit patchy, obviously, but you know, you can see what we're trying to achieve here. So what I want to do now is I'm taking the 50% cool grey, which mine's getting a bit pathetic now, and I'm actually going to use the side of the pencil because my point is quite sharp, and I'm just going to start going over where we've started to lighten up with the black, and I'm just going to pull this out a little bit further. So I'm going down to his beak, and it's almost going to nothing because I'm using the side of the pencil, and I can go over these areas that we joined up, if you like, and just make them a little bit darker without them actually being black. There's only so much black you want. I mean, we've got plenty of black elsewhere, but I'm going to pull this quite far out because it's quite far away from the lettering. So that's an advantage. We've got space to do this here. So there we go. And I'm stopping about 1 centimetre away from the lettering there. And if I just finish off this little bit here, I'm going to pull this down a bit further as well. What I'm able to do now is with the lightest shade of grey, which is 10% cool grey, it barely shows up on the paper, but it's just nice to have that final transition. So if you go from about halfway in and just really lightly run that over, and then you can bring that out almost to the lettering, and it just lets you smooth that out as well, just to give you that nice feel to it. If you want to go over this with a colourless blender, feel free. Again, I've said this before, I like the texture and you can see it quite clearly on the paper there. I'm leaving that as is, but feel free to go over that with a blender if you want to get a really smooth finish on it. Because your colourless blender will do absolutely fine on the, you know, on the bare paper because there's no pigment in it. So in here, I've now got somewhere to work towards. I've got that point, so I'm just going to bring out this with the 50% grey, and I'm going to lighten up the pressure as I get towards the beak. Like this. And then I can grab my 10% and just head over the top of some of that as well. Now what I'm going to do is with this 10%, I'm going to bring this down to the part over the in front of the chest, because we still want it to be uniform and we still want it to join up with the rest of the area. So I'm putting the 10% down there. And what I'm going to do now is when I start to bring this up with the 50%, I can maybe sneak a little bit of the 50% in here as well. Again, just to sort of bring it together. So I'm going to start in this little fiddly bit in there, and then I'm going to bring this up. So bearing in mind that my guideline is here, I'm probably going to stop the 50% about there. So in over here at the peacock, I can just put a tiny little bit in along his chest and belly area, just to join this up round here. And it's just a very, very slight hint. But what this is going to do is by having this grey around the outside, it's going to draw your eye inwards to your name in the middle, which is obviously the entire point of the page. So you're kind of guiding people's eye towards the main part of the picture, because without that, because the peacocks are quite vibrant, you know, you kind of got lots of places to look, whereas because this is white, your eye will be drawn there first, which is where it should be because it's a nameplate page, and then the eye will travel around the rest of the picture. It's just all about aesthetics. It's all about aesthetics. Okay, so I've got my 10% again, and I'm just bringing that up almost to the guideline that I've drawn in, but not quite. And I'm just going to go in here and take my 50%. Just darken this down a little bit. And then we can move round. Here we go again. I'm just trying to match this up with next door. And when I come out past this part of the flower, I can stop my 50%. Almost in line with those petals actually. I could probably stop it about there. I'll bring this down here. And I can start working over some of that black again. Just make it a bit richer down there. I'm gonna have to get a pencil extender for this little dude just shortly. I don't know if I've got another 50% grey in my stash. I think I do. When I go to buy replacement pencils, and obviously it happens more frequently with the Prismacolors than any other pencil just because of how soft they are, but when I'm ready for a replacement, I usually buy two, and then I know I've got a stock of them, if you like. If it's a colour that I use very, very frequently, which for me is most of my greens, I'll buy three. But if it's a colour like grey, it's not something I use terribly often, I'll just buy two. There we go. Back in here now. And again, I'm looking back over this other side over here to see where I'd got to and what I'd done with this. And just let that go a little bit there. And do the same in here. And then I can get my 10%. Bring this up, work over some of the 50% just to blend it together, And bring this up closer to my guidelines. You can see that top line much more clearly on the camera than you can the bottom one. It doesn't look like that from where I'm sitting though. I'm not happy with this corner here. I'm just going to pop a little bit more black in. Just feel like it's not enough. There we go. That's a bit better. So again, the same thing, I'm going to use a little bit of this 50% grey just along this line here of his chest and his belly. Just a little bit. And then I can go back to my 10% and I can work over the top of that. And I can pull this right up into here. I'm just going to stop there at the beak just now because I need to work out the way from this side. So back to my 50%. I think I've got a wobbly core as well, I can feel it. Yeah, it's moving about, oh no. Right, we'll keep going. We'll soldier on until it breaks. So just past this little white circle, bring this out to about here. Trying to keep it as even as possible across that whole section, but again, I'm not really all that bothered, to be honest, because it's meant to be a subtle effect. And then I've got my 10%, so I'm just going to work that over again, what I've done. I'm just going to pull this right out to his beak area. There we go. Alright, we're nearly there. This is exciting. Always get quite excited towards the end. Oh, there we go, that's us, we're done. Oh no. Come on, my little friend. Okay, I think we're safe. Right, so same thing here. I'm just going to work over some of that black. And I'm going to pull this out a little bit. And I'm going to continue round, sorry I'm taking you off for a wee ride here. I'm just going to continue round that curve first with the 50%. Join it up here and pull this out a little bit first before I go in with the 10%. I feel as if I can do this section almost in, you know, as in one entire piece, if you like. Again, keeping it quite close in here just because we're really close to the lettering. But this part can be darker around here where we didn't use the black. You're really just substituting the 50% for the black in terms of drawing a line around it, if you see what I'm saying. And then after that I can go back with this. Now I did notice over here that I brought this grey out a lot further just because I had the space to, so I'm wanting to make sure that I keep it the same on both sides. So that was to about there. And then I can carry this on. There we go. So the 10% cool grey, it's just, all the 10% is just perfect for this. It's just a really good pencil to have because it's so delicate. You know, you barely notice it, but it just does the trick nicely for spots like this and when you want to do things like this. So I'm just darkening down in this little crevice. And then take that 10% down there. I've got quite a harsh line there, that's annoyed me slightly. I'll try and just soften that up a little bit. That's a bit better. And down here we're just going to take the 50% over this entire sort of pointed part here where we didn't use the black again. And then we can just very gently bring that out in a circular motion, like so. And then I'll just use the 10% very sparingly. I'm actually doing that more to sort of smudge that out rather than put any more colour down. And then we'll go back to our 50% over here. Bring this out a little bit more as well. There we go. And join that up in there. I'm leaning a little bit heavier when I'm next to the purple area. There we go. And there. Super. Okay, let's zoom out and have a little look again. There we go, that's just a nice soft edge round, that is exactly what we want. Now lastly, what I tried to do was try to simulate this same sort of font for my name. Now obviously that's entirely up to you if you want to do that or not, but I just thought that it would be fun. And there aren't many places where you can see this type of lettering, so I kind of half made it up, but we'll see how this turns out. I'm concentrating, can you tell I've gone quiet? Just to try and get this. I want this to be quite fat, you know, because obviously I want my name to stand out, but I think I maybe need to start further over. Yeah, I need to start further over, so I'll start here. And just get this outline down. Okay, I am happy with that. So I'm just using a Pigma Micron and I'm using a 0.3 because I need a slightly thicker line. And I'm just going to ink this in. And as with everything else, I do it backwards because I'm left-handed and I don't want to smudge things. One of the joys of being left-handed is, for me certainly, if you're writing birthday cards, the paper seems to have like a sort of glossy sheen on it, and nearly every birthday and or Christmas card that I write is smudged, and it's just because that I've got to go over the top of what I've just written, and people have kind of come to expect it from me now, but there's not much I can do about it. I've tried everything as well. I've tried different types of pens or whatever, but it's down to the paper. It's not the pen. Okay, let's move on to the E. I'm going to bring this tail out and round a little bit more. I think I'm going to have to thicken up my line width of my M now that I see it next to the E and I see it on the camera, because the G is going to be quite fat as well. Yep, I'm going to thicken up these lines here, just to try and keep it a bit more uniform. That's better. So I'm just going to give that a little second to dry so I don't smudge it. And then all that's left for me to do is to erase my graphite lines and my original G that was too far over. Just using a kneadable eraser for this. These are great for lifting graphite, and I don't use any other type of eraser anymore. When I'm colouring, I do like to use my Derwent electric razor. It's really good for getting into like all the sort of tight spaces, but when it comes to graphite, the kneaded eraser's my favourite by a long shot, by a country mile. Oh, I can see a tiny little bit that I've missed. Should get in there. All right, and there we have it. Hip hip hooray. Oh, I'm not finished yet, I'm telling you lies. What I want to do just before we finish up is I want to take a white gel pen. My weapon of choice, it's just the first one I've grabbed out my little tub, is a Jelly Roll 10, and I always test these on post-it notes to get the ink flowing before I start, and then move it out of the way so I don't smudge it everywhere. And what I want to do is I just want to put a little highlight down here on our our gemstone. So I'm just going to sweep that across there like so, and then maybe another bit down here. And what I'll do is I'll let that dry and I'll go back over it again so that it really pops out. Okay, aside from that, that is everything. I think I'm done. I think I may finally be done. So I hope you've enjoyed following along with this. I hope you like the finished article as well. I'm quite pleased with how it's turned out. And I'm glad to be finished, to be honest. So please drop me a comment below, and if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And you can always hit the subscribe button if you aren't a colour caver yet. We'd be more than happy to have you. And we'll see you back in the cave next time for another video. Bye for now, everyone.